You know, they tell you the American dream is supposed to smell like fresh-cut grass and coffee, a place where the loudest thing you hear is the sound of sprinklers ticking on a Tuesday morning. And for a while, when my wife, Chloe, and I moved into Cypress Creek Estates, it looked exactly like that brochure promised: tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, a quiet place for us to finally settle down. After years in the military and then another decade running field operations for infrastructure resilience, I needed stillness, and Chloe, being a pediatric oncology nurse, deserved it. She wanted a front porch where her patients could mail her thank-you notes, not another P.O. box that expired every 6 months. But what they don't print in the glossy HOA packet is that behind every community harmony committee, there's always one person who confuses control with peace. For us, that person was Veronica Sterling. She wasn't the official president, Gary Dawson held that title, and he was about as sturdy as wet cardboard, but Veronica, she was the chairperson of the Architectural Review Committee, and she ruled this neighborhood with a clipboard and a permanent scowl. Her kingdom was a 3-bedroom ranch, painted an HOA-approved beige, with the soul of a petty tyrant. From day one, we were marked. Maybe it was the antique wind chime Chloe hung that played something slightly off-key from the officially sanctioned Silent Breeze standard. Or maybe it was just that I didn't flinch when she strutted by. But the real problem started when we decided to be neighborly. Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, 2 doors down, bless her heart, was struggling with her front steps, so Chloe and I, with the help of a retired contractor neighbor, built her a small, perfectly functional blue ramp. It was community, right? It was kindness. Veronica saw it as an act of war. She marched onto Elena's lawn, peered down at that ramp like it was toxic waste, and hissed, "You're setting a disastrous precedent, Mr. Carter. If we allow accessibility ramps everywhere, Cypress Creek will look like a hospital ward." Chloe, with that incredible patience she reserves for scared parents, just smiled and said, "Better a ramp, Veronica, than another ambulance call." That was the core of it. Veronica couldn't stand kindness. It exposed her power trip for the fragile thing it was. She wasn't building community, she was building a fortress of rules. And if you didn't approve of her brushstrokes, she'd fine you. Our neighbor, Mark, got hit for having his decorative mailbox 3 inches too far from the curb. Another guy got cited for his petunia color palette being excessively vibrant. For months, I kept my head down. In emergency ops, you learn to pick your battles. You don't deploy the full arsenal for a stern word. I tried the polite route, filing paperwork, writing firm but civil emails, thinking a little common sense could defuse the nonsense. But then they crossed a line that wasn't just petty, it was genuinely dangerous. Veronica decided the community needed an element of heritage and installed this big, ornate wrought iron gate, they called it the Heritage Gate, across the east entrance of our street. It looked nice, sure, but it blocked one of the key access points that fed directly into the county disaster evacuation route. That wasn't just a bylaw violation, it was a felony waiting to happen. I sent a letter, professional and clipped, "Dear Board, as an infrastructure resilience consultant, I must advise that blocking this entrance violates county fire code and state disaster protocols. Please remove or adjust this barrier immediately." The response was a single line from Veronica herself, "Your concern is noted. The gate stays." That's when my training took over. I'd seen too many disasters start with complacency. That gate wasn't just a hunk of metal, it was a warning sign, and Veronica, with her smug, "my street, my rules" attitude, was the disaster waiting for ignition. Chloe, bless her heart, kept trying to find the good in her. "Maybe she's just lonely, Ben. Power fills a gap for some folks." I shook my head. "Lonely people bake cookies, honey." Veronica files citations. It was time to escalate, but quietly. I pulled out the old contacts Rolodex. A few years back, I'd run a statewide resilience drill with a powerhouse named Commander Riley. She was sharp, relentless, and thankfully, allergic to bureaucracy. I pitched her the idea, reroute the upcoming state emergency drill right through Cypress Creek. Stress test the corridor. Document everything. Riley was cautious. Protocols are protocols. But when I sent her the documentation, my 3 ignored warning emails, photos of the illegal gate, the statutory codes it violated, her tone changed. You're telling me, Carter, a suburban HOA blocked a designated state evacuation route? Yes, Commander. And they ignored 3 formal warnings. 10 minutes later, she called back. All right, Carter. We'll route it your way. But if this goes live, if we go from exercise to active response, you pull the trigger. That was the moment. I pulled out my old, secure satellite phone, the kind you carry only for life or death scenarios. I programmed the recessed speed dial button. I called it Protocol Zulu. It was a test within a test. If an incident occurred, a medical emergency, an assault, anything severe, that drill could be instantly escalated to a real-time response. I didn't tell Chloe the full plan. Not yet. I just knew that sooner or later, Veronica's reign of petty terror was going to crash headlong into something far bigger than her HOA handbook. And when it did, I would be ready to hold the line. The morning it all erupted was deceptively perfect. Sunlight bounced off the polished SUVs lined up for Veronica's favorite spectacle, the annual curb appeal day. She was marching down the sidewalks in a pastel blazer and oversized sunglasses, barking orders into a megaphone she'd charged to the HOA budget. Chloe, ever the light, decided to use the crowds for good. She set up a small folding table at the edge of our porch, draped in a soft green cloth, with a hand-lettered sign, Pediatric Therapy Dog Program Fund. She had brochures, a donation jar, and a big tray of her famous chocolate chip cookies. It was just kindness made tangible. And then, like the soundtrack of doom, came the click-clack of Veronica's designer heels. She approached with that familiar shark-like smile. Unauthorized activity, she snapped before she was even on our property. Clipboard poised, pen like a dagger. Section 4.3 clearly prohibits any commercial or charitable activity without prior ARC approval. Chloe offered her a cookie. It's just for the hospital, Veronica. You're welcome to donate. If kindness could melt ice, Veronica was titanium. She ignored the cookie, pulled out a measuring tape, and crouched down, snapping it open like a gunslinger. Too close to the path. Obstruction hazard. And these flyers, solicitation. Completely out of order. Neighbors started gathering. I stepped onto the porch. Veronica, this is ridiculous. It's a charity table, not a flea market. Nobody's obstructed. She straightened, nostrils flaring. Rules are rules, Mr. Carter. If we allow this, what's next? Chaos. In my community, everyone obeys. Your community, I echoed, and that jab landed. Not ours. Not the board's. Yours. That's the problem. She stepped closer, crossing onto my porch without invitation. You people think you're above the HOA, she hissed. Chloe, trying one last time, held out her hands. Veronica, please. It helps the kids at the hospital. It helps all of us. But Veronica didn't want peace, she wanted domination. She jabbed her clipboard at Chloe's chest. Pack it up, or face fines. Chloe stood her ground. No. That single word detonated something inside Veronica. She let out a high-pitched, fake laugh, and then, with a viciousness that shocked everyone, she lifted her foot and shoved forward. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. A kick. Time slowed. I saw Chloe's eyes widen, her arms flail, the cookie tray clattering. Then she tumbled down the 4 steps, a sickening, bone-jarring thud echoing as her body struck the stone walkway. Rage hit me, cold and absolute, but training took over. Triage. Stabilize. I was at her side in 2 strides, my hands sliding under her neck. Chloe, don't move. Stay with me, sweetheart. You're okay. Around us, the crowd erupted. Neighbors were shouting, phones recording. Veronica stood frozen, clipboard still clutched, her mouth hanging open as if she'd just realized she'd shattered the illusion of her own power. Call 911 now. I barked at Gary Dawson, the useless president who was now wringing his hands. Then, my hand slid into my pocket, finding the cold weight of the sat phone. This was the definition of emergency. My thumb pressed the recessed button labeled Protocol Zulu. To the gawking neighbors, it looked like nothing. Just another phone call. But I knew what it meant. That ping traveled straight to the State Emergency Operations Center. It meant the National Guard drill was no longer an exercise. It was a live-action response. I looked at Veronica, still standing there, and for the first time, I didn't see a tyrant. I saw a petty dictator standing on the wrong battlefield. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance. But beneath it came another sound, low, rhythmic, unmistakable. The rumble of heavy engines. 3 minutes. That's all it took. And when the ground began to shake, every single person on that street turned their heads to see 5 full military convoys, olive-drab giants, rolling straight into Cypress Creek Estates. The roar of diesel engines, dozens of them, grinding up the road like an oncoming storm. 5 full National Guard convoys, including troop transports and heavy engineering equipment, rolling into our little slice of suburban heaven like Judgment Day on wheels. I tightened my grip on Chloe's hand. Hold on, sweetheart. Help is here. Veronica, however, did not look relieved. Her jaw dropped, clipboard clutched to her chest as if she'd just kicked the wrong beehive. What is this?" she stammered, glancing around for her imaginary backup. The lead Humvee screeched to a halt right at the so-called Heritage Gate. Soldiers spilled out in full gear. Boots struck pavement in unison. The officer in charge, Commander Sarah Riley, strode forward, her sharp eyes scanning the entire scene in one relentless sweep, a woman injured on the ground, neighbors filming, and an illegal gate blocking her convoy. What happened here? Riley's voice sliced the air like a blade. The county sheriff's deputy, who'd arrived just behind the convoy, jogged up and answered before Veronica could even sputter. Assault. Civilian pushed down steps. Victim stable but injured. And this gate is blocking emergency access. Riley's eyes snapped to me, then to the sat phone clipped at my belt. Recognition flashed. Carter, she said curtly. Protocol Zulu confirmed. Yes, Commander, I replied, my voice steady despite the fury twisting my gut. Barrier non-compliant. Multiple complaints ignored. My wife's down. I wasn't gambling on response times. She gave the smallest nod. Then she barked orders. Engineer unit, prep to cut that barrier. MPs, secure the scene. Medics, assist EMS when they arrive. The soldiers moved like clockwork. One squad unrolled the hydraulic cutters, sparks ready to fly. Another cordoned off the crowd. A medic knelt beside Chloe with steady hands. The efficiency was beautiful. Veronica finally found her voice. She thrust her clipboard toward Commander Riley. Excuse me. This is private property. You can't just barge in here. I'm the ARC chair, and these vehicles are not authorized. Riley didn't even blink. Ma'am, this is a designated emergency corridor under state statute. You've obstructed it with an unauthorized structure. Stand aside. I will not. This is my street. You people answer to me. Veronica shrieked. The collective snicker that rippled through the neighbors was almost enough to break the tension. 2 MPs stepped forward, towering over Veronica. Ma'am, move aside, or you will be physically removed. For the first time, Veronica faltered. But pride is a stubborn disease. She planted her heels. This is harassment. I'll sue. With a hiss and a shower of sparks, the engineers sliced through the gate's locking mechanism. The metal shrieked in protest before giving way entirely. The convoy roared back to life, the trucks lumbering forward, reclaiming the emergency corridor as if it had never been blocked. The paramedics arrived and lifted Chloe onto the rig. I squeezed her hand. I'll be right behind you. With Chloe safely on her way, I turned back to the battlefield. Inspector Valdez from the city arrived next, with a clipboard of his own, one that actually mattered. He snapped photos of the barrier's remains. This is a code violation on 6 different levels. Blocking ADA access, fire lane obstruction, no construction permit. He glanced at Veronica. Who authorized this? I did. As ARC chair, I have full authority. Valdez cut her off. You had no authority. This is coming down today. And the fines will reflect that. Then came the real kicker. Commander Riley's aide, reviewing the gate's permit application, held up a tablet. Commander, the official application lists a contractor named Sterling Landscaping. I nearly laughed. Sterling. As in, her cousin. The aide confirmed it. LLC filed last year. No license on record. Looks like a shell company. Funds meant for HOA maintenance went into a family member's pocket. That's fraud if proven, Riley muttered. Veronica was spitting mad. He's making this up. He set me up. Deputy Reed, who was busy holding a citation slip, just chuckled darkly. Lady, I hate to break it to you, but state law outranks your HOA bylaws. And as for the setup, we've got a dozen videos of you assaulting Mrs. Carter. That's assault, plain and simple. And then, the spineless president, Gary Dawson, finally broke. He raised his hands, sweat staining his polo. Please, Veronica, stop. I'll cooperate. I have the HOA's financial records at home. I didn't sign up for money laundering. She pushed us all into it. The crowd erupted. Years of silent resentment pouring out. Veronica whirled on him. You traitor. Riley closed her log book. From this moment, this neighborhood is under joint jurisdiction until the corridor is certified safe. Ms. Sterling, you're relieved of whatever authority you think you had. That was the breaking point. Veronica screamed, throwing her clipboard to the pavement. Papers scattered like confetti at a nightmare parade. This is your fault. You brought them here. I met her glare head-on. You're right. I did. And I'd do it again. As the convoys slowly rumbled away in formation, the message was clear. Veronica's reign of fear had ended. Not with a vote, not with a meeting, but with the undeniable weight of truth, law, and steel. For years, she'd hidden behind bylaws and petty fines. But against body cams, receipts, and the unified force of neighbors who'd had enough, her clipboard queen empire had finally crumbled in broad daylight. The days that followed felt like waking up in a different neighborhood. Chloe was fine, bruised ribs, a mild concussion, but thankfully no permanent damage. She wore a neck brace for a week, rolling her eyes every time I fussed. Jack, she told me one night on the newly patched porch. You did more than keep me safe. You kept this whole community safe. You drew a line. And the line stayed drawn. Within a month, the county placed the HOA under interim receivership. Veronica was charged with misdemeanor assault and obstruction. Watching her being escorted into the back of a patrol car, face twisted in outrage, was surreal. She kept shouting about lawsuits, but her voice was drowned out by the click of cameras and the quiet gratitude of the neighbors. Gary Dawson resigned immediately, and the county audit was brutal, laying out line after line of suspicious transactions and the sham, Sterling Landscaping, invoices. The meetings that used to feel like tribunals now turned into gatherings of neighbors planning real improvements. Mark, the guy with the too far from the curb mailbox, ended up leading the new neighborhood watch. I was nominated for the new board by half the neighborhood, but I declined. I told them, I've spent enough of my life in command posts. It's your turn to lead. I endorsed a slate of practical, reasonable neighbors, and they won in a landslide. Power isn't the point. Accountability is. You know, looking back, the whole thing wasn't about luck. It was design. I planned for accountability. The assault wasn't part of the plan, God no, but it proved the point better than any drill ever could. It showed that power only lasts as long as people allow it. Veronica thrived on silence, on neighbors too scared or tired to fight back. Her clipboard only worked because everyone treated it like a sword. But the second we pushed back with truth, with evidence, and with solidarity, that sword turned into scrap paper. So if you take anything from our story, let it be this. Don't ignore the small injustices. Speak up. Document everything. Find allies. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to press your own version of the Protocol Zulu button.